Get underway. Councillors are dragging themselves back into the room. Right, thank you. So can I welcome, I should look at the right page, shouldn't I? Diane Shalander from council side of things, and David Murphy from Environment Canterbury. And thank you both very much. I'm sorry you've had to wait, but you can see that when controversial, well not controversial, but things that people are passionate about come first, then it can take us a bit longer to get to items such as this. But this is a really important item, and we've been looking forward to this presentation since we came up with the idea of having joint, presentations on these important areas of connection between ourselves and other districts. So if I could just hand over to you for the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, councillors. I'll make it brief. I'd just like to introduce again David Murphy, who is the program manager for the Whakaora Te Waihora program.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko David Murphy aho, and actually it was a wonderful privilege to be here this morning and follow an item on multiculturalism, and so I think that's a great segue, and so thank you for the privilege to present today. I will be brief. This is a briefing on restoration of Whakaora Te Waihora for your information. And thank you very much for that introduction, Diane. Just to explain my role on Whakaora Te Waihora, it's an operational program where the current program funders are the Ministry for the Environment, Environment Canterbury and Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu. And we are governed under the Te Waihora Co-Governance Group, of which Christchurch City Council is one of the members. So that's how we fit in. The brief summary which I'll give you today will talk more about co-governance and some of the achievements under co-governance. I am speaking on the achievements of works for a number of different people. I'll answer questions as best as I can, but I want to acknowledge all the people who contribute to this, and also Tāmutu Runanga as a kaitiaki of Te Waihora, Lake Ellesmere. Thank you very much. First of all, Te Waihora, Lake Ellesmere, New Zealand's 5th largest lake, depending on the lake level. It does vary, which I'll get to. So usually somewhere between the 4th and the 6th largest lake in the country. It partially sits within Christchurch City Council's jurisdictional boundary, and it has significant values, not only for culture, recreation and economy, but also ecology. And there's actually 167 species of bird out there. Christchurch City Council rangers are part of the annual bird count on the lake, and on one day they count anywhere between 48,000, 50,000 birds on the lake. So it's a significant treasure in the region. The problem, this is often discussed around the co-governance table, there's a legacy of nutrients in the lake. Nitrogen, phosphorus binding with the sediments of the lake. The Maori, or the life force, and the ecology have been damaged. And there's also, we've got the added complexity of the need to manage the lake level. Way back when, the lake level was about 4 metres, which would be, you'd be getting your ankles wet in Lincoln. So now the lake level is around about the 1 metre or below level, and when it gets to a certain level, because of flooding on land and other reasons I'll get into, the lake is opened. So there's the challenge of managing and restoring within managing the lake level situation as well. And also projects on restoration can be quite complex. Very briefly, in regards to Ngāi Tahu, the lake is a tribal taonga, a treasure, and it's a major mahinga kai. Mahinga kai is the food, the art of food gathering, and the places of food gathering as well, and it's an important source of mana, prestige. In 1999, for Ngāi Tahu, the treaty settlement, Ngāi Tahu will also they got the ownership of the lake bed, and Ngāi Tahu had the aspiration to restore the Maori, the life force, and mahinga kai values of Te Waihora. So the ownership of the problems and the solutions, where do you go to from that point? It started in 2012 with an agreement between Environment Canterbury and Ngāi Tahu to establish a co-governance group. This has grown. In 2015, Selwyn District Council joined the co-governance group, and in 2016, Christchurch City Council joined the co-governance group. And it's a joint commitment to lake restoration. As far as I know, I think this is the first co-governance agreement in New Zealand which is voluntary. Under legislation, they don't have to work together, but the parties are wanting to work together. And I'm very proud to be working within this program under co-governance, because everything in the program is in joint decision making, which I'll get to, and there's the respect of program partners. Aims of co-governance, very briefly, to provide successful leadership and stewardship of Te Waihora and its wider catchment, and to govern the Whakaora Te Waihora program. That's where How is Christchurch City Council involved? Well, through the many existing works of the City Council in planning and waterway management and land management, all these works benefit the lake and the catchment. Christchurch City Council is also a member of the Te Waihora Co-Governance Group. Under that, there's the Joint Officials Group, which Diane Chalander and Helen Beaumont are officials on. And there's the Christchurch City Council are also represented on the agencies group, the statutory agencies which meet around the lake to discuss common issues, the Selwyn Waihora Zone Committee, and the Lake Opening Protocol Group, which I'll get to. Achievements of co-governance. This is where I'll give a brief summary of a number of different streams. The opening of the lake is a joint consent between Ngāi Tahu and Environment Canterbury. When the lake needs to be opened, when it hits a certain threshold, it goes to a protocol group, which the City Council is part of. And once a decision is made, again, joint decision making, the consent, Ngāi Tahu and Environment Canterbury, then they open the lake. And if I have your patience for a minute and a half, I'll just show you a brief video on what a lake opening actually looks like. Now there is no sound with this, but this is right on Kaitariti Spit near Taumutu, and when the lake reaches a certain threshold, the diggers get in there. And it's an amazing operation to watch. These are incredibly skilled drivers, and health and safety considerations taken into account, and they cut this long channel right through the bar there, which then allows a certain pressure to build up and the water to come out into the sea. Now, I've got the greatest respect to those drivers of DC9 and the like, because they're not too far away from the shelf edge there, and they're operating in some serious surf, so they can only operate within a certain conditions as well. So the joint consent to open it with Ngāi Tahu, and then Environment Canterbury River Engineers, which oversee this body of work. And it's so important, that lake opening, not only flushing of the lake, also reducing flooding on farming land, and significantly, there's a great view out to the Southern Sea. So that opens, it can take 3 days to a week to open. Then it's left open depending on the weather conditions. It may stay open 2 or 3 weeks. It may close the next day because southerlies, just bringing those stones up.
So the entirety of that channel that they need to dig out?
Yes, they dig out that channel, about 15 metres wide, about 80 metres long. And then it gets up to a certain hydraulic pressure and opens it. So, and I'll also, to come back to the presentation, which I may have just killed. Apologies.
Down, yeah, there, I'm not sure. Where'd it go? Joe knows.
I'll also, when the presentation comes back up, there's a very interesting slide on it, because you see there's a still photo. You see that channel open and it's teeming with tuna, eel. So the Water Conservation Order has been changed in recent years to allow that lake opening to also coincide with the migration of eel and patiki, flounder. So look at that, the waters are churning, and since the change of that's also been...
The sound's been turned off, your sound? Yeah.
So you'll see there the water's churning with tuna, eel, heading out to sea, about to disappear off to the mysterious location up near Tonga, to reproduce and then begin their migration back. And since the change of that water conservation order, there's been a noticeable improvement in fisheries within the lake. So this comes on to the other value of improving mahinga kai values of the lake. And there's a picture of a pataki, a flounder being caught there. So it is a significant fisheries in the lake and evidence of co-governance and joint decision-making working together. To also mention, Waihora Zone Committee have been worked on with community on a solutions package, the zone implementation plan, which has got statutory and on-ground actions, and the lake is a key focus there. And that's the first ever plan for the Te Waihora catchment. That's going from Craigieburn down to the lake. Osborne's Drain, much smaller location, but I just draw attention to this because it's an example of co-governance working together. That's a satellite shot on the northeastern part of the lake. There's a drain which runs down to the lake, which has had water quality issues for a long time. But because of a collegial approach, a working party from co-governance partners working together on a consent, there's a path ahead to improve water quality. Another small example I'd like to highlight, Ahuri Lagoon restoration. Ahuri Lagoon is on the northeast corner of the lake. In times gone by, it was actually a bay of the lake. Its current area is ECAN endowment land, and there's been the desire to restore it, to increase the mahinga kai and ecological values. So there's a steering group representing local runanga and neighbouring landholders, which with ECAN staff input, specifically to keep the Hallsville-Huratini Canal flowing, and so there's no flooding on neighbouring land. A plan went up to co-governance for approval. So we've got a vision document there for the next 10 years where action has started of how we can restore that area of land and improve mahinga kai, biological and recreational values. And down to Whakaora Te Waihora as well. Very briefly, we're an operational program, started in 2012 under co-governance, and we have works in biodiversity, science, engineering, cultural component, extension and communications. And the goal there is to restore and rejuvenate the Maori, the life force and ecosystem of Te Waihora. The partners have realistically said this will take at least 2 generations, 35 to 40 years. So we're looking to the horizon, and we're currently in phase 1, which is the first 5 years where we've been getting rungs on the ladder and initiating works. Going forward, what are the opportunities for Christchurch City Council under co-governance? Well, around lake restoration, there's beneficial values for community, in recreational values for the area, health and ecology and education, and there may be other opportunities to contribute, and there could also be a bigger bang for the buck through complementary actions. Around the agencies group, there's going to be a workshop in terms of trying to map out what are the existing actions of all the different partners and where there's natural synergies as well. Thank you very much for the time.
Excellent. Could I ask if people have any questions? Yanni and then Phil.
I mean, this is a little bit wider than your specific presentation, but just in terms of the model, it seems to have been really beneficial. Have you thought about whether there's other areas within waterways where a similar model may be worthwhile?
The model of co-governance?
Yeah.
Probably a question for the co-governors, really. So, personally, I've worked on different projects. Although I've grown up and I've educated in New Zealand, I've worked on projects overseas, and it's always interesting in overseas projects. There's always one partner in a leading position to another. So this program brought me back to Christchurch. And it's really exciting to be part of, not only getting rungs on the ground, but doing it under joint decision making. But sorry, to answer your question briefly, I haven't thought of other possible applications.
It's interesting because I mean it's the
like
link with the zone committees that I think is the obvious one. But I felt exactly the same as Yanni when I joined this group, because Christchurch was a latecomer to the partnership. I think we signed up to it last year.
Last year.
So but I was invited to participate before the formal signing up was undertaken, and since that time I've asked Pauline Cotter to take over that role. And and she, of course, plays a very active role in terms of the zone committees. But like Yanni, I've thought it's just such a good model. You'd think that, working to that degree of collaborative coordination would really be beneficial in terms of our own waterways. But the zone committees are that process. So, as I was reminded by the previous chair. Phil, Dion, Pauline.
So thank you, David. My question really is what, in terms of the source of the problem, which you referred to at the beginning, and that is that the elements of phosphorus and the different sort of, I guess, tracks that they have taken to end up with the degree of the pollution that we have on the lake.
And probably my answer to your question follows on responding to Mayor Dalziel as well, that zone committees there are key. So in terms of my line management, I'm a servant to different masters. I report to the Joint Officials Group as part of strategy and to our funders. And within Environment Canterbury, I report into a zone team. And so I do attend the zone committee meetings. And it's also, even though the situation is large with the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus already in the system, the solution you can see in the landscape. It's gratifying to see. I almost see it as a jigsaw, really, the whole catchment. There is many different players, and we all have a part to play. And the zone committee are critical in their work and how they implement that ZIP in water quality, the drops of water which are falling up at Craigieburn, which are coming down in Wycliffe Starfield, and how that water flows off farm. And so the ZIP is going to be a zone implementation plan, is going to be a key part of the ongoing solution to the lake.
Dion?
There was actually a big part of the question I had, but because your next stage is obviously improving water quality, in the work that you've done already, you've delivered farm environment plan workshops. How are the farmers taking to this new information is what I was really wanting to know.
I'll just speak in regards to, thank you, Councillor, in regards to that question. I came onto the program as the implementation manager after those workshops. Those workshops were run in the very early phase before the farm environmental plans have become part of the zone implementation plan. So because they were very new at that stage and the program piloted, I believe 53 farm environment plans, they were received well from farmers because they were gaining that level of assistance. And though that was an action which was in the very early phases of the program to trial out there with the community.
Sorry, can I just keep going? Do you think that could be improved? Obviously, to improve the water quality, where you're saying that whole catchment, that the farmers are really important there. I'm just quite curious to sort of hear, is that more work going on there in the next phase as well?
There's definitely a large segment of work, particularly within the Waihora zone team, which is extension work out on farmers and implementing that zone implementation plan.
Pauline?
Yeah, thank you. Look, it's a pleasure to be involved in this co-governance group, and thanks for the opportunity, Leanne. And it's an enormous project. There's a huge time frame, as you say, a couple of generations, because it's taken many, many years for the lake to reach this degraded level. And there's also an enormous amount of money, I think 11.2 million from 2012 to 2016 from the government. So, and it's nice to see that it's the whole community involvement, got all the children planting, there's 4,000 trees, and things like that. So, can you tell me though, that when the council's involvement, you've got here that we deliver planning, waterway management and land management works. So whereabouts is our land management works? Where does that fit into the project? Because we've got a very small area, haven't we, around the lake?
We do.
Because I would have thought that was more ECAN's.
Well, to an extent. I mean, it is a collaborative process. There is one of the groups that the council participates in is the Lake Margins Working Party, which is part of the Te Waihora Agencies group. And so that's one of the things that they do look at is how land is used right at the lake margins, which in and of itself is kind of an interesting concept because the margins of the lake can change depending on how much water is in the lake. And how land is used at those lake margins can have obviously a very immediate effect on what's going on inside the lake itself.
So why is that council and not ECAN?
It's, like I said, it's collaborative, actually. It's in some cases, it's quite direct because we, the council, do own some land on the lake margins, and in some cases, we have leases with farmers to use that land, and it's, so how is that used and where? And so one of the things I know the Lake Margins Group has looked at and has had successes in is getting stock off of where the lake either is or is expected to be under reasonable circumstances. So that kind of thing. So that's very direct in terms of our involvement, particularly where it's our land.
Right, I see, that's good. And also, just following on from Dion's comments, I think the farm management plans are a key tool in cleaning up our waterways. And I'm just wondering where are the milestones and the reporting back to see if these management plans are actually working? You might not know the answer to that. Or
I think I'd like to take that question on because that question would be best for the Waihora Zone team, and there's a reporting within the Waihora Zone Committee as well on how the ZIP is delivered.
Thank you. Okay, follow that up with Ian.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. Thoroughly enjoyed it, especially the video. That was just stunning. Can I just ask a follow-up question, though, from your answer, Diane? In relation to leases around the lake that the council has on its own land, I'm assuming a term of the lease is that they don't have any runoff into the lake or any cattle nearby or anything like, or any animals nearby.
I would caution that I don't have a lot of knowledge about how the leases work, but my understanding is that they're based on the types of uses of the land. There wouldn't necessarily be an issue in terms of runoff. It's more making sure that the animals themselves, if the leaseholder has animals like cattle or sheep, that they're not in an area which would adversely affect the lake bed or contribute nutrients to the lake. And again, through fencing and land control with the leaseholder and changing the nature of the leases over time has made a big difference, say, compared to 20 years ago.
Just because if we want to be clear on the whole Canterbury braided river system, it's quite important that we're actually doing the same thing ourselves. Before we ask ECAN to... Yep. And I like I said, I don't have a lot of knowledge, but I think we are pretty good about trying to manage that. Could we possibly find out that our leases actually do not in any way aggravate the water quality?
I know just who to ask.
Thanks.
All right. So the resolution is that we receive the information in the report. Would someone like to move that? Pauline, seconded Sarah. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much.